With that, I would yield to Mr. Gowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank the three witnesses who came today and actually were responsive to the chairman's questions. It's a shame, Mr. Chairman, that ICE was not willing to answer your legitimate questions. It's a shame, Mr. Chairman, that ICE was not willing in a timely fashion to comply with the legitimate subpoenas issued by Chairman Lamar Smith. Mr. Chairman, it's been a bad week with respect to the disconnect between certain government agencies and the people for whom they work. I guess at one level I should be encouraged that we actually had a congressional hearing where no government employees invoked their Fifth Amendment right against incrimination, but maybe I may have set the standard too high. If ICE were here, Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask them with respect to the testimony from Ms. Andrusco. She testified ICE let the illegal immigrant who was fraudulently using her son's Social Security number go twice after being arrested. I think it's a very legitimate, fair question to ask ICE why they did not detain an illegal immigrant who was arrested multiple times. That's a fair question. It's a legitimate question. Why ICE won't come answer that question is beyond me. I also wanted to ask ICE, Mr. Chairman, if they agreed that the widespread use of fraudulent documents has undermined the effectiveness of the I-9 process. But I can't ask them when they're not responsive to the chairman's questions and they're not here. I wanted to ask ICE what priority they give to breaking up fraudulent identity document rings. That's a legitimate question. It's a fair question. It's a question I suspect I'm not the only one that would ask. But I can't ask ICE that question when they haven't been responsive to the chairman's questions and they're not seated at the witness table. And then, Mr. Chairman, I looked at the subpoena request that Chairman Lamar Smith sent that were not complied with in a timely fashion. And what Chairman Gallagher, what Chairman Smith asked for is information on aliens arrested between two certain dates, about 3 years apart. So essentially 3 years worth of records on aliens about whom ICE was notified but did not take custody. It's not a complicated question. It's not an unfair question. It's not an irrelevant question. It's not an immaterial question. But it took a long time for ICE to answer it. So what I wanted to ask ICE this morning, but I can't because they're not here, because they wouldn't answer your legitimate questions, I wanted to ask them whether or not the administration advised them not to answer that subpoena. I wanted to ask them whether anyone in the administration counseled them to drag their feet or otherwise not respond to a legitimate subpoena from the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. But I can't ask them because they didn't answer your questions and they were uninvited. Then the other thing I was hoping to ask them had they come, Mr. Chairman, was Chairman Smith asked for information about aliens arrested, again, over that same 3-year time period. It's not even a different time period. It's the same 3-year time period, so they're not going to have to do any extra work. 3 years worth of records about aliens that ICE was notified about but declined to put into removal proceedings. Because I am asked all the time in South Carolina, they cannot fathom of someone being convicted of a crime that's here unlawfully and not removed. So I wanted to ask, what took so long to comply with Chairman Smith's subpoena? Did the administration advise you to drag your feet? Did the administration counsel you not to answer these questions because the answers would be unflattering to the administration? So again, I want to thank the three witnesses who actually were responsive to the committee's questions. And I thank the chairman for his leadership on this issue. And until ICE will come and answer what I think are pretty relevant, material, fair questions, that would be all I have for the day.
Would the gentleman yield?
Be delighted to.
I understand the gentleman's frustration. I just would note for the record that ICE was perfectly willing to come and testify today. It was the chairman who disinvited him. I understand he disagrees with the nature of their written testimony. I do not, but they were willing to come, and I think it's important to say that.
Would the gentleman yield to me?
Yes, sir, of course.
Yes, I did disinvite them because they were non-responsive. It wasn't because I disagreed with what they had to say. I disagreed with the fact that they did not respond to the germane question that was asked as it related to the purpose of this hearing today. And I would further say that when they did contact us and talked a little bit about, well, why we didn't do it, we couldn't understand how that portion was kind of redacted from their statement, but they would be willing to come forward and, in my opinion, come forward and be non-responsive to the questions that I believe that had Mr. Gowdy asked them, they would have been as non-responsive to his questions as they were to their written statement that related to the purpose of this hearing to start with. So it wasn't because I didn't agree with their statement. I didn't agree with the fact that they didn't respond. And so with that, Mr. Gowdy's time has expired due to my further discussion, and all time has expired.